they tend to break down problems into actionable units. It's like, well, I'm depressed. It's like, well, okay, fair enough. But what's wrong with your life and your mood in the micro details?
And this is what's really strong about this conversation. They get into a lot of nitty gritty about practical things that you can do to hack and to sort of make the life that you have within the affluent frame better. And what these two are dealing with is actually the frame itself. And you wouldn't imagine that, because here you have, well, you probably should imagine it if you know that here you have two clinical psychologists, and of course Jordan will go to the other level, and I'm sure this guy does too, but it's very interesting contrasting these two talks.
And how could we address that programmatically? And I think the problem with diagnosis is that it's really easy to confuse diagnosis with cause, right? Well, I'm miserable. Why? Well, because I'm depressed. Now, well, maybe you have a biochemical problem, but absent that, depression isn't a black box with homogeneous contents. There's specific reasons that you're miserable and unhappy. And what we need to do is to break down those reasons, differentiate them down to the level of detail where you can start to experiment with addressing them. And so if the diagnostic enterprise interferes with that, then it's counterproductive. And that happens very frequently.
Yeah. I remember the first time one of my students was hospitalized for major depression and suicidal ideation. I was taken aback that the first couple of days after, they had gotten sleep and were fed, the protocol was, your job is to get up and go take a shower, and then you can go back to bed. We're gonna take these tiny steps towards, right? That's, my friend Dave Ramsey, it's, okay, we're gonna get $1,000, sell whatever you got, sell your famous guitar, you're gonna get $1,000 in a savings account first. And you're gonna breathe for the first time. And then we're going to pay off your debt. And then right? It's these tiny baby steps towards, and again, I think we've been sold a bill of goods that mental health is, I just gotta get all the right thoughts in the right order. And there's something I think we just swiped off wholesale, the behaviorist approach. I just don't see that working out, man. I think we have to often act our way into a different way of thinking and experiencing the world.
Well, the other thing too that people should take heart in consequence of is that, as you pointed out earlier, when we were talking about the cascading effects, let's say, of sorting out how you have dinner with your family, there's multiplying effects. Well, it might be very disheartening to see at what small scale you have to begin improvements, right? But the truth of the matter is that tends to scale exponentially. Is once you start making improvements, the improvements feed back upon themselves. And so even if you have to start out small, it doesn't take very long before you're on the upward trajectory, and it's not linear. You can fail precipitously, right? But you can also succeed precipitously. Once you get the ball rolling, positive things tend to aggregate together, and you can make a lot of progress even if you start from a pretty damn dismal place.
So how do we get that extraordinary insight into the public lexicon? How does that become a way of operating? Because all of us are we're running around staring at our own belly buttons, waiting to not fall off that precipitous decline, and we are missing the opportunity for this accelerating post-traumatic growth, right? We've been through hard things. Okay, that's the whole book, man.
What do we do
now? What do we do next?
That's the answer to your question. Well, how do we bring that into the public domain? Well, you wrote a book.
Yeah, but
we're having this conversation, and so and
one of the things that I regularly talk to people about are books versus YouTube, because I kind of squared it in my mind, and at some point I'll probably want to write a book, because a book is a different space than YouTube. But these people, Chad can't read a book while he's laying tile. Grizz is, not Grizz reads books, but he's, he can't read a book while he's doing his lobster monkeys and all those things he's doing.
And that is how you do it, and you try to communicate the utility of, what would you call it, humble, courageous, incremental movement forward. and honest communication, social community, all the things.
When I started playing around with YouTube, even before I found Jordan Peterson, and before I was just doing the Freddie and Paul show and nothing else, I had someone in my denomination who was working at the denominational publishing house, and he was really trying to talk me into doing some writing, because I was doing writing for a variety of other things. And I sat down and I thought about it, and I said, if I write a book, my mom will read it. Some of the people in my church will buy it, but not read it. Most won't read it. Now, people in my church don't watch my videos either, but I very quickly figured out, probably for a lot of people like this, it's video, not a book.